It's going to be a bit of a busier afternoon compared to our mornings because this time we're going to do our program of inquiry and development review. So this afternoon session is all about aligning and also reviewing, making sure that the POI shows horizontal and vertical alignment. So why do we do this? So we do this because the IB has specific standards and practices in relation to the written curriculum. That the program of inquiry and all corresponding unit planners are a product of sustained collaboration. Systemic approach to integration. We might not be able to touch on integration today, but in the succeeding professional development days, we can systematize it further. Most importantly, we have this one. The school ensures there is a coherent horizontal and vertically articulated program of inquiry. The scope and sequence documents. We've created an in-house one, but we've seen that there are some areas that might still need further refinement, and that's where the IB scope and sequence documents also come into play, which covers all of the levels from early years all the way up to grade 6. Okay. Most importantly, we also have the written curriculum is informed by current IB publications. Everything that we put, or anything that the IB puts on their website has purpose, has an actual role and function in the development of our curriculum and our program of inquiry. It is not simply taken from the mists of an imaginary school, but actually the IB has spent time and practice to look at these curriculum documents and come up with a suitable, relevant, globally engaging program of inquiry or curriculum for students to use. And lastly, there is a system for regular review and refinement. One of the challenges last year was that when I worked with you teachers, we would tweak the central ideas of your program of inquiries from time to time. But the thing is, when we would tweak that, because I'm only working with you, I would fail to see that there were problems or that there was an overlap with other levels, or there would be repetitions as well. So with this session, we hope to be able to address these kinds of errors or these kinds of gaps so that we don't commit it again. Okay? And so our inquiry question for this afternoon is, how might we align and strengthen our program of inquiry? So to answer that, in my ID, the Program Resource Center will have this infographic that it is essential as a PYP school that we regularly conduct a program of inquiry review through a vertical and horizontal articulation. When we talk about horizontal articulation or alignment, we are looking at the balance of the key concepts, APLs, and learner profile attributes from our level, from Unit 1 all the way up to the last unit, so that we don't have a repetition of the same concepts. In our POI, I oftentimes see form and function come up 3 or 4 or even across the entire unit. Well, in the IB, having those concepts are good, but we also have to make sure that they are broad and balanced at the same time, so that you have opportunities to inquire into different concepts as well. Now, in terms of the vertical alignment, we are going to look at the transdisciplinary themes and the descriptors to ensure there is a vertical alignment, meaning that we are trying to make sure that the transdisciplinary themes are covered from early years all the way up to grade 6. do, apart from ensuring the horizontal and vertical alignment, we'd also like to take the opportunity to address the repetition of various units. You can see on the screen that I've posted some old units that have repetition. One grade level is doing all the new things, have needs that help them survive and adapt to their environment. And then the central idea of another level, all the new things have involved various types of adaptation to their habitat for survival. So in many ways, or in some ways, you might say that there's that repetition already, or you can say that it is spiral. But we have to be able to make sure that these kinds of repetitions don't occur, because we need to make sure that at different levels, students are inquiring into complex ideas as well. Here we have another one. Our beliefs, values, and experiences play an important role in shaping our cultures. The other one, beliefs and values influence our daily lives. The central ideas are different, but if you take a look at the lines of inquiry, they share similarities with only a few points of divergence. Now, admittedly, I did not see this repetition, and we were able to do the unit, but we want to be able to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And last one as well. So here, we have one unit on who we are, another unit on where we are in place and time. The who we are unit is on migration. The where we are in place and time is on exploration. Two different concepts, but the ideas are the same. However, we also have to take a look into the transdisciplinary theme descriptors. Is the who we are unit, or did the who we are unit tackle the descriptors? Does it show an inquiry into the nature of self, beliefs, values, and all of that? Likewise, in the where we are in place and time. Maybe these units could have been combined to have a larger focus or more clarity as well. So, in order for us to do this, to make sure that we are coming into a school year where the program of inquiry is tweaked and refined further, we will need to, once again, go through a vertical and horizontal alignment of the different units. And so, I've asked you before to make sure that you have your language scope and sequence, your science, social studies scope and sequence documents ready, because then we will be taking a look at this in your respective groups as well. When you take a look, or when you look at the scope and sequence documents, you will see there the age bands of the different levels. For the specialists, it will be in a form of a continuum. But the age levels or the age bands will give you an idea of the learning outcomes necessary for our students to achieve by the end of the unit. So for this afternoon, we are going to first do a vertical alignment. That's why I printed out the program of inquiry for the different levels. And we will see whether we address the transdisciplinary themes and whether these are seen or evidenced and explicitly targeted from the early years all the way up to grade 6. So for the different levels, preschool, upper primary, lower primary, you're going to do collaborative work for the next few minutes or hour or so. And so using the TD theme descriptor of your first unit, so that's upper primary and lower primary first, using the transdisciplinary theme descriptor of your first unit, sharing the planet, look for evidence that supports the theme or descriptor. So points to consider: do the central ideas and lines of inquiry fit the descriptor? Is there a repetition at any level of the central idea, or at least the lines of inquiry? So for the upper primary and lower primary levels, you are going to look at the transdisciplinary theme descriptors and make sure that, for example, for lower primary, grade 1 can focus on this section of the descriptors. Grade 2, another part of the descriptor. And then grade 3, another part of the descriptor. Grades 4 to 6, the same as well, making sure that the transdisciplinary theme descriptors have been met from grades 4 to 6 and 1 to 3. Preschool will do something different in a bit, so okay. So please, this grades 1 to 6 teachers, this is your task. Now, as you are doing that task, as you move, you will find that maybe there are some units that may not necessarily fit that descriptor, or may not necessarily fit that level. So you have two options if it doesn't fit. You can move the unit to an upper level, moving it up to grade 2 or grade 3, or scrapping it entirely. Now, if you are going to scrap the unit entirely, you can now make use of the social studies and science scope and sequence by looking at the learning outcomes to help you identify or craft a new central idea. And by scrapping the first unit, let's say your sharing the planet unit doesn't really work, then you move on to the next one to C. And eventually, we will find out which units are stable and which units need further revision and also aid from other levels as well. Yes?
Are we editing the last year one or making a copy of it or write on this paper?
Just write on this paper, then later on I'll share the POI for this school year. Using this POI, so working together as a group, let's say you'll start off first with grade 4, you'll need to identify which transdisciplinary theme descriptor will grade 4 be working on, grade 5 will work on, and grade 6 will work on. Making sure that each element of the transdisciplinary theme descriptor has been met or has been achieved at each level. Now, after looking through the transdisciplinary theme descriptor, you are going to take a look at the central idea and lines of inquiry. For example, Mr. Eugene decides that for sharing the planet, his transdisciplinary theme focus will be an inquiry into the responsibilities in the struggle to share finite resources with other people. That's his only focus. So now he needs to, working as a team, you need to look at, does the sharing the planet unit fit that theme descriptor? The central idea fit the descriptor. If not, you can either scrap it, meaning that you have to make an entirely new central idea, or if you feel that this unit matches or it works for another level, then you can move it to grade 5 or grade 6. So for specialists this time, when we talk about the scope and sequence, your role is to make sure that you support the requirements of the different levels at different points. So in terms of supporting the inquiries through subject migration, you can do so through skills such as explicit art, music, writing, speaking, and then content is basically teaching who use one piece, a dance number, one sport, or the Now, please do know that when we integrate, we do not force the integration. So if there is really no opportunity to integrate with a certain level, then we do not force it. There will be standalone units where you will write your own unit planners, and there will be subject integration units where you will be sharing with a common teacher. In terms of your scope and sequences, you will see that unlike the social studies and science scope and sequences, there are no learning, the learning outcomes are not as explicit. But rather they are based around a continuum, which is the natural progression of skills and phases of learning that are divided into skills. So arts, responding, and creating. So at each level, the students should be able to respond to a musical piece and also create a musical piece. Respond to an art piece and create. PE, you have the two strands of activity and interactions. And then language, you have these ones, or else listening, visual, reading, and writing. So, in terms of the language part, this is where you will now need to match the national requirements with the requirements in your language scope.
They share the same central idea about
So for example, for music, we have the create some strands. We have the different phases. There's like a memory because we need more irrigation. I've taken the opportunity, I've taken the liberty of identifying the learning outcomes of the different phases. So phase 1 and phase 2, they naturally are short phase 2 and phase 1 to 3.
That's something
Phase 2 and phase 3, you have an overlap of different skills of phase 1, 2, 3, and also 4 and 5.
just to make sure that don't study the same topic.
So you'll see learning outcomes, vocal sounds, rhythms, instruments. So what does that look like at phase 2?
So we need
G1,
to
G2.
think about focus for these 2 years. So just
Okay. Then for E, active living.
it's not a question, it's more like
So maybe it's
Yes.
how about the basics does the last